r/ask Reddit. What sounds like fiction but is actually a real historical event. During World War I, the German Navy built a ship and painted it to make it look like a British ship called the RMS Carmania in order to infiltrate and destroy British convoys. On the ship's first outing, the first enemy it encountered was the real RMS Carmania, which promptly sunk it. Spider-Man meme. In 2007, a paraglider got trapped in the updraft of two joining thunderstorms and was lifted to an altitude of 33,000 feet. She landed over 3 hours later about 60 kilometers north of her starting position, having survived extreme cold, lightning and lack of oxygen. That sounds scary. Imagine spending 3 hours in the sky and not being able to get back down. She was unconscious for most of it, thankfully. Jeanne de Clisson, 1300 to 1359, was married to a French nobleman who was beheaded for treason by the French king. Enraged, she sold their estate and purchased 3 black warships with red sails, and became a pirate queen of the English Channel who targeted French ships. She became known as the Lioness of Brittany, and in her 13 years of piracy she would slaughter every member of a ship's crew except for one so that last survivor could go back and tell the French king what had happened. Why do I feel like the 1300s never get talked about? They focus on the Black Plague. Everything else gets lost by the wayside because that was so massive. The Great Molasses Flood of 1919. A tank filled with 2 gallons of molasses burst and sent a tidal wave of molasses through the streets of Boston. 21 people were killed. Imagine standing in the streets as a tidal wave of molasses approaches and just thinking to yourself, well, I guess this is how it ends. Death by molasses. The escape from Antarctica by the members of the Antarctic expedition led by Ernest Shackleton. The stuff they went through was unbelievable. Their boat, the Endurance, was crushed by ice floes. They were stranded on the floes for over a year in temperatures well below freezing. They then took to 3 boats around 22 feet in length across the Antarctic Ocean looking for land. There were about 10 men in each boat. They missed reaching land by just a few miles at times. 2/3 of them got stranded on Elephant Island surrounded by ice while one of the boats went out in search of rescue. That boat made it through the Drake Passage, one of the deadliest places in the ocean. All but 3 of them got stranded with little food and water, while the 3 men who left became the first people that crossed South Georgia on foot. They found civilization, rescued the men who came through the Drake Passage, waited months until they could rescue those on Elephant Island. Every single person who came on the initial voyage survived, with the worst lasting consequence being a single foot amputation. I am shocked that this has not been made into a major movie or mini-series. An English king named Ethelred, later called the Unready, took some troops to defend against a Viking invasion. The weather was bad, so a lot of the Vikings' ships crashed as they were landing. Ethelred thought that it would be dishonorable to attack them as they were stumbling onto shore, so he kept his troops back until the Vikings had a chance to get together and form proper battle lines before he attacked them. The better prepared Vikings then won the fight and slaughtered a bunch of Ethelred's men, and he and the rest were forced to run away while the Vikings went around pillaging. Also, his sobriquet does not mean unready in the modern sense, as in unprepared, but rather ill-advised. Ethelred, the name meaning well advised, a hilarious pun. The battle for Castle Itter near the end of World War II saw US soldiers, French powers, and the German army fighting on the same side to hold the castle against an SS tank division. To make it even weirder, the French prisoners included several prime ministers and a tennis star. A tennis star, 2 prime ministers, 2 French generals, a former SS officer, and Charles de Gaulle's sister. Someone get Tarantino on the phone. He needs to work on this. Edgar Allan Poe wrote a novel in 1838 in which 4 shipwreck survivors, at the point of starvation, choose to resort to cannibalism. So they kill the young cabin boy, Richard Parker, and eat him. In 1884, a ship called the Mignonette sank. 4 crew members survived. At the point of starvation, they killed and ate the youngest of them, Richard Parker. The inspiration for the tiger's name in Life of Pi. Mad Jack Churchill, the man with the only confirmed longbow kill in World War II. Guy and his squad did a death march towards the Germans while playing bagpipes, got captured and sent to a concentration camp. He then escaped, got caught again, and then escaped a different concentration camp. Also, he always carried a Scottish longsword with him. There's so much other weird shit he did after the war, and it's amazing to me that he's entirely real. Are you allowed to arm yourself with whatever you please as a soldier? No, I don't need a rifle, thanks. I have a catapult and a bag of marbles. I'll be grand. Generally speaking, no. But if you're the kind of person who wants to carry a ducking sword into combat against people armed with machine guns, you're probably not going to let the rules slow you down too much. Louis XIX was king of France for 20 minutes. The shortest war ever recorded was around 40 minutes long. During the Salem witch trials, dogs were also accused of witchcraft. 2 dogs were executed because of it. Was the 40 minutes war between the British and natives of the island of Zanzibar? Yes, it's clocked at between 30–45 minutes. The Soviet scientists starving to death saving the seed bank of Leningrad during Hitler's invasion in the winter of 1941 to 1942 despite it being full of corn, wheat and potatoes. What happened? They ran out of food but couldn't eat anything from the seed bank since they needed to preserve its stocks. That level of dedication is just unimaginable. To go against your survival instincts and starve to death in order to not eat that food. I can't even comprehend. The dancing plague of 1518. It wasn't even an isolated incident. Multiple dancing plagues happened over the course of a few centuries. Strasbourg in 1518 was just one of the bigger ones. People left their friends behind. It was terrible. Not exactly historical, but a poodle named Cachi in Caballito, Buenos Aires, fell from 13 floors and fatally hit 75-year-old Marta Espina, killing both instantly. In the course of the events, 46-year-old Edith Sola, who came to see the incident, was fatally hit by a bus. An unidentified man, who witnessed Edith's death, had a heart attack and also died on his way to the hospital. Wojtek was a bear who fought Nazis in return for cigarettes and beer. He didn't die until 20 years after World War II. My favorite part about that story is that after the war he lived in a zoo. It was common for soldiers from the bear's company to come visit and simply jump into the enclosure to play with him, much to the zookeeper's annoyance. Wojtek fought the Nazis for free. The beer and cigs were just a bonus. A Russian Tsar had a bomb thrown at him, avoided it, and thought it was a good idea to stay there to look at the damage. Enter second guy with bomb. Assuming you mean Alexander III, Lenin himself watched the execution of his brother in a slightly earlier assassination attempt. Sergeant Stubby. During World War I, a soldier found a stray dog when training on the Yale University campus, and took a liking to him. The soldier snuck the dog onto the ship when he had to leave campus, and when the dog was found by the commanding officer, he was allowed to stay because he had learned how to salute. Stubby was injured a few times during the war, but he was useful with alerting his squad of surprise mustard gas attacks and gunshots before the human ear could detect the sound. He also found and comforted wounded soldiers and caught a German soldier by the leg of his pants until American soldiers got to him, aka the bestest boy to ever live. Reminds me of the Polish bear who fought in World War II and was promoted to corporal. Joshua Norton was just this random crazy guy from San Francisco who hated all this political nonsense that was going on at the time and figured he could do the job better at it himself. And thus the Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico was born. While he held no real power, the people liked him so much that they treated him like royalty anyways. Any currency issued under his name was treated like real money at many establishments. One day, he was arrested by a private security force because of his mental health, which enraged practically all of San Francisco. The police chief let him go because he had committed no crime, and Norton gave an imperial pardon to the guy who arrested him. After this incident, any police officer Norton passed would salute him. Another time, when a riot had formed and was getting pretty violent, Norton simply stood in front of the mob and calmly prayed, which managed to disperse the mob. And that's not even a fraction of the crazy stuff that he did. So, you're telling me the Emperor of San Francisco from Christopher Muir's books is real? Did he have 2 dogs as well? There are 3 separate defenestrations of Prague. The word defenestration was coined to describe the third one. The defenestrated parties survived in the third one. The Catholics claimed angels helped them down. The Protestants claimed they landed on a dung heap. Historians think they survived because they were only on the second floor. To this day, political protests in Prague often involve defenestrating someone in effigy. The death of Ken Rex McElroy. He terrorized Skidmore, Missouri for decades, stalking, assaulting, murdering and raped two 14-year-olds who were his wives. He had an expensive attorney, so he was never charged. The law never helped the poor town. One day, the town gathered for a meeting on how to deal with McElroy. Details get a little vague here, but apparently someone alerted the room that McElroy was in the bar up the street. Quietly and calmly, everyone got up and walked over to the bar. As McElroy got into his truck, someone shot him in the back of the head. The town just went back to their business. When the witnesses, like the entire town, were questioned, everyone claimed they didn't see anything. No one has ever been arrested. When you read the real John Brown story, from Kansas to Harper's Ferry, it just doesn't seem real. Fundraising, Canada, clandestine fundraising, religion, asking everyone to join, betrayal by friends, martyrdom, etc. John Wilkes Booth was at his execution. The Roman Emperor Caligula once declared war against Neptune, god of the ocean. He led his soldiers to a beach and instructed them to stab the water. In 1980, Lake Pigner in Louisiana drained like a bathtub with the plug removed. Oil drillers on a rig in the lake had hit a mine shaft below. The rig, barges, a tugboat and part of a nearby island got sucked into the largest man-made whirlpool ever. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.